Hello, everyone. My name is Victoria Thompson. I am very excited to be with y'all this evening for the last iteration of our artificial intelligence series for fall of 2023. And today, what we're going to be doing is talking about using artificial intelligence to drive educational outcomes. We're going to go into the current data, what things are currently used for, and also how we can use that to drive positive activity. But I did want to point out that right now we are, and unfortunately, the last in a four-part series currently. I work with the Special Education Technology Center quite a bit, so hopefully we can have some more fun with artificial intelligence and STEM. However, I did do 4 different sessions on artificial intelligence this fall of 2023. The first was an introduction to artificial intelligence or AI in education. The second was talking about the whole cheating ethical element of assignments with artificial intelligence. The third is using artificial intelligence for lesson planning. And then today, of course, we're going to be talking about using this to drive our school educational outcomes. If you've got any questions, please be sure to check out the Special Education Technology website for more information. But here's a little bit about who I am and my sweet pup Ren, who's currently at my feet, but also in this picture. So I'm a proud product of New Jersey K-12 public education, born and raised in Marlton, New Jersey. I don't live there anymore, though. I currently live in Winter Garden, Florida. That is a suburb of Orlando, Florida. If you've been here for a while, you know that I've been an instructional coach. I was at Microsoft, and as of last week, I have a new career at CDW Education. So I am their lead education strategist for 6 states across the southeastern United States. So it's very exciting, and I'm very excited to be on this new venture. But previously, if you've been here for a bit, I was at Microsoft. I was an education industry executive, and then I was also a customer success account manager. But as of last week, things have shifted a bit because now I'm leading states, which is awesome. I am an ISTE award winner. If you are familiar with ISTE, that's the International Society for Technology and Education. I've won top 10 most innovative leaders in education by CAO Look. But the most important thing is that I live in Orlando, so I'm a Walt Disney World annual pass holder, and I go to Disney pretty much every day. I'm not going tonight because it is pouring rain outside of my house, but if it was not, I would be there later on tonight. And then I also love bread, baking, and cooking. I think that there's something super special just about the intersectionality of STEM and the kitchen that is awesome, not only for students, but also for adults. I really want to highlight artificial intelligence because that is such an emerging topic. Artificial intelligence has been around for a while. That doesn't mean that it's going away. It also doesn't necessarily mean that it's new. But a lot of the topics I feel like we're seeing in education are topics that we have never encountered before. And part of the reason why is because we're finding out new things every single day. So I want to kick it off just by saying that when we're kind of looking at artificial intelligence from the top down level, with the rise of awareness about artificial intelligence, I think that we can all do really great things. I don't think that there's a single thing that we can't do with artificial intelligence, but we need to be mindful about it, and we really need to critically think about how we get there. This is where data informatics comes into play. And depending on where you work, what you do, and what your role is, you might not have a ton of information, but I hope that I can put some things into perspective for y'all. So let's just kick it off as I always do. If you go back or if you've been in all these other sessions, I always like to just begin with the definition of artificial intelligence. So we're going to start here. The actual definition of artificial intelligence, or AI, I kind of interchange those two terms as we go along, is the ability of a digital computer or a computer-controlled robot to perform tasks that are commonly associated with human beings. That's it. So we're not getting into ethics. We're not getting into assignments. We're not getting into assessments. All we're doing right now is just defining it. If a digital computer can do it the same way that I could do it as a human, or if a computer-controlled robot can do it the same way that I can do it as a human, that's artificial intelligence. That's all it is. These are tasks that are normally performed or associated with human beings. So that's what artificial intelligence is from the top down level. Now let's take it one step further. This is one of my absolute favorite graphs from Gartner. And this is the hype cycle for artificial intelligence. This is circa 2022. The reason why I like this graph, again, if we're looking at data, we're looking at trends. And we're also trying to figure out what our expectations are for AI versus the amount of time that we have in order to get things done. In the past, I have worked with schools where they're really excited about AI, and I'm really excited with them too. But then it gets to a space where they just don't know if they have the time to budget it. They don't know if they need to make a task force. They don't know how this is going to impact their outcomes. So this is where I would like to walk through this with y'all, because I think that this is a really nice representation of what it looks like to effectively implement AI wherever you are. So I'm looking at the x-axis right now. I'm looking at the horizontal axis towards the bottom that says time. There are 5 different variables here. The first variable is the innovation trigger. And I love that phrase. I love the phrase innovation trigger. Innovation trigger means we have an idea, let's figure out what we need to do. So if I were a math teacher, which I was in a former life, I might say, hey, my kids are really struggling with quadratic equations. I have an idea that maybe we can use artificial intelligence to make things happen, right? Maybe I put them on Wolfram Alpha for multiple different types of challenges. Maybe I put them into GeoGebra for some simulations. Maybe I work with them with an AI chatbot for mathematics, right? So this is kind of that innovation. I don't have my Figment, or actually, no, I do. If any of y'all are Disney World fans, Figment, one little spark, right? All it takes is one little spark of imagination. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, look up Figment in Walt Disney World. He has his own ride and he's amazing. But he's a purple dinosaur, and basically it is one little spark. All it takes is one little idea, and that's the innovation trigger. Then, as we go through the innovation trigger, you'll notice that we've got some ideas here, right? So we've got causal AI, data-centric, engineering, composite AI, all of these things that can kind of come from that initial idea. And then we drop a little bit because we have what we refer to as the peak of inflated expectations. We've got all these grandiose ideas, but what do we do with them? What do we actually do with the ideas that we have? And this happens a lot in schools and classrooms and districts and any educational environment. We've got all these wonderful ideas. We need to figure out how to put these ideas into place, because if we don't, we're going to be in big trouble. So we have that innovation trigger. Again, we've got that one little spark. Then we go to the peak of inflated expectations. Peak of inflated expectations, if you can also take a look, we're dipping into ethics, right? We're looking into services. We're looking into what it looks like to make our students, our faculty, and our staff learn all of this. So this is the coming off of the, oh my goodness, we could do all these things, and thinking, okay, here's what we actually need to do to get it done. Then we go through what's referred to as the trial of disillusionment. This doesn't mean that we're giving up, but this says, okay, we had these great ideas. Now we're kind of going through the reality of it, and we're a bit disillusioned. We don't know how we're going to get this done. However, after the trial of disillusionment comes the slope of enlightenment. And we have to get there not only by ourselves, but also together. It takes a lot to get from a space of, oh, I don't know, to we can actually do this. So what does that look like? It looks like intelligent applications. It looks like labeling our data and figuring out what's going on. That way we can move things forward. And then last but not least, what happens is that once we reach that enlightenment, the end goal is that we're at what's referred to as the plateau of productivity. So the plateau of productivity, that's what we look for, because that means that we are being productive with artificial intelligence the entire time. Now, I do want to point out the different types of legends that are on the bottom, because you can see that for a lot of these, it takes time. And I want to reiterate once again that artificial intelligence, it's not going to be like a snap decision where we're all going to be proficient tomorrow. This does take time. A lot of the pieces of the hype cycle take anywhere between 2 to 5 years to 5 to 10 years, just kind of looking at basic pieces of it. However, there are some that can be accomplished in less than 2. And what I'm looking at in particular is the computer vision. What does your school's mission and vision look like to use artificial intelligence to move things forward? There are some that are way out, right? Like artificial general intelligence and like autonomous vehicles. Like we are on the cusp, but we're not perfect there yet. What I'm looking for at schools is what can we do to move things forward? And to me, that is going to be the computer vision. So speaking of that vision, let's talk about the most popular uses rather, for artificial intelligence. And whenever I show this to people, this is a Forbes graph. People get a little confused because in education, we think about AI as students completing assignments, us crafting emails. But if I'm looking at the most common ways that consumers plan to use artificial intelligence, and again, consumers, it's like you, me, my parents, people in our community, you'll notice that these are fairly tame and also they're not really pushing the envelope. We just want to do those normal, casual things to move our lives forward. That way we can save time. And that goes back to exactly what I talked about before, because if I'm looking at that hype cycle, a lot of the stuff that can be accomplished in a very short amount of time, it's just stuff that we want to do to make our lives simpler. So if I were to go back over here, we want to be able to respond to people via text and email, friends, colleagues. I have a friend who actually uses ChatGPT to write her emails, and I know when she does it because it doesn't sound like her. However, I know that she's doing it to save time. Also, things like answering financial questions or maybe planning a travel itinerary. I fly Delta. Delta is my preferred airline. If there's something wrong with my boarding pass, I could call Delta and be on the phone for 60 minutes, or I can get on with their chatbot and everything is resolved within 3 minutes. I'm going to go with the chatbot, right? Like if my flight to Atlanta is messed up, I can go on the chatbot and I can figure it out. Also, things like prepping for a job interview, which we're going to talk about in just a few moments, writing social media posts. Did you know that on websites like Twitter and LinkedIn, you can actually pre-schedule your posts, and that's artificial intelligence. Or you can even go into a service that will write the post for you. It's magic. And then also summarizing complex or lengthy writing that you might have. So you'll see that nothing that's listed here, I mean, it's not rocket science. It's just things that we do every single day that can make our lives simpler. So you might be wondering what this means for data and data consumption. When I think about how to move things forward, I automatically default to how artificial intelligence can be used as a student, and then also how artificial intelligence can be used for college and career readiness. Again, if we're thinking future ready, we got to be future ready, and the data helps us back this up. So, with what we're thinking about how artificial intelligence can be used as a student, we've got these awesome accessibility tools. You know, things like speech to text, things like ink to text. We've got public speaking feedback. We've got math feedback. What I showcase here right now in this little snippet, like this little picture. So this is actually within the read aloud features and also the immersive reader features within Microsoft. I'm not just saying that because I used to work there, but I am saying that because I used to use it all the time, and that's artificial intelligence. If you take a look at the screenshot here, there are multiple different voices that you can utilize. You can also check the speed of how fast or slow somebody goes. And once again, this is all generated directly from the computer. If I wanted somebody called Hazel, I'd have to call my friend Hazel, who lives in British Columbia, to come down to my house in Orlando, Florida, to read to me. Or I could go on the artificial intelligence and I can select a voice, right? That's how that works. Now, what I also think about too is just the potential possibilities with outline creation, especially with grades and figuring out how students are doing, creating questions, things like school and networking, which again, we're going to go over, and then also creating various different types of prompts. All of this data is actually collected within the interface. So we can kind of see how things work out, but then we can also see how we can help students too. Then when I think about it from the college and career side, I mean, let's get real. Researchers found that 43% of college graduates in 2018 were underemployed in their first job. This number has only climbed since the pandemic. What they did find, though, interestingly enough, was that students who interact more frequently or receive more messages from chatbots or AI were more likely to have better academic outcomes. And when I think about this, like in hindsight, it kind of makes sense. You know, if you're interacting with somebody or something on a fairly regular basis, then you have more opportunity to showcase who you are and also showcase what you want to do. But there's also things like content review, right? Job searching questions and networking. Opportunity is the name of the game. We find opportunity whenever we find data. So let's talk data. Let's think about this graph. So this was actually posted in 2020, about 3 years out from the time of this recording. But when I think about 3 years ago and in 3 years, this is exactly why I chose this graph, because we are 3 years out, aren't we? Right? It's 2023. So if we think about 3 years ago, a lot of the artificial intelligence that people thought was going to happen was stable artificial intelligence, efficient artificial intelligence, and then predictive artificial intelligence. Efficient means it helps us do better. Stable means it's always there and helps with essential functions, things like healthcare, like automated processes, things like that. Predictive means that if I type into my phone, which I don't have on me right now, but y'all know I just got a new phone, so I'm very excited. iPhone 14 moving up in the world. But if I have predictive text, it can kind of figure out what I'm going to say. Notice how that has jumped 3 years from now. So nearly all of the expectations that we had for artificial intelligence have shifted. If we're taking a look, 46% predictive at this point. That was the projection, and that's almost shockingly spot on. Also, things like efficiency with technology, right? How quickly can I get things done? We also have some efficiencies in areas regarding stability as well. So we have 86%, and we have that 13, 23, 77. But at any rate, if we take a look here, there's only about like a 2% variance versus where we used to be, where we are now, and then where we were 3 years ago. And that's pretty amazing. We can predict these things and we can figure out where data is going to take us. And what that means really is that we need to get started with opportunities. So I'm going to show one more graph because I think that this is really important, and then we're going to get into those opportunities for data. If I take a look at 2023, so really recently, right, February of 2023, 15 to 25% more usage in AI for what's referred to as core education processes have happened. All of the stuff that you can see on the left-hand side of the chart is what is referred to as a core education process. What are those? Student support, assessment and feedback, learning processes, administrative processes, student recruitment, and identity and security. Basically, how are we learning, how are we collecting, and how are we keeping kids safe? If you take a look at the charts from 2019, there's a lot of red there. And not that there's not red on the other side, but take a look for administrative processes, 47% of admin didn't even touch artificial intelligence. For assessment and feedback, 38% did not even touch. For identity and security, 51% didn't even touch. Now let's kick it over to 2022. Those numbers have decreased significantly, which means that the number of people using artificial intelligence has increased significantly. These are really cool things. These are really cool things. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop sharing this, and please give me just a moment or two so we can go ahead and switch over to how we exactly collect data, or how we can with artificial intelligence. There's a lot of different options. What I'm going to do really is just showcase how I like to do it in a lot of different ways. It's getting there. So the first thing I'm going to show you is how I collect things using forms. This is a really simple way to utilize data to really drive student improvement. But again, this is all coming from artificial intelligence. Alrighty. Made me change my password, but that's okay. All right, going to go ahead and share. So right now I am on Microsoft Forms. You could do this in SurveyMonkey, Google Forms, all those things. I'm going to show you Mentimeter as well today, but I'm going to kick it off with Forms just because it is so cool. And I use Forms a lot for collecting data for not only students, but also faculty and staff. And what I'm going to do right here is go to Student Check-in. So this is something that I used to utilize with my students quite a bit, only because we were going through some challenging times in the school. This was right after the pandemic. Remember, I was in Washington State, where a lot of our schools didn't open until fall of 2021, sometimes maybe even winter 2021 or spring of 2022. So what I wanted to do was make sure that we checked in with each other to ensure that we were in some semblance of being okay. I didn't expect perfection, but I just wanted to see how students were doing. Now, of course, there are some other functions that you can utilize for artificial intelligence. What I'm the most interested in is how quickly does this do this for me? So what I did, if you can take a look, I just had a couple different questions. So I've got student check-in right over here. So welcome, right? We have another great day in math class. Please fill out the check-in below. I said, what's your first and last name? It collects the email for me, but I want the first and last name too. On a scale of 1 to 3, 1 meaning I'm not having a good day, 3 meaning I'm having a good day. How exactly are you feeling? Then I get into some more ambiguous questions. What do you need to be successful in class right now? What are some things that you would like to do in class? And what would you like to see changed? Giving students agency in that space is something that they really appreciate. So just having open forum is helpful. Would you like to meet with your teacher to discuss more? And then, is there anything else that I can do to help you? So you'll notice I got 3 just kind of basic responses. And with the artificial intelligence, if I were to give this as like a paper like warm up, I mean, I could go through everything manually, but it would take me time, right? Like I am also an adjunct professor at a college down here in Florida, and I have everything submitted online for my students with a few exceptions, only because I could just go through so much faster online. So you'll see here, first and last name, on a scale of 1 to 3, 1 meaning I'm not having a good day, 3 meaning I'm having a good day. How are you feeling? What do you need to do to be successful right now? What are some things that you'd like to do? And then would you like to meet? And then what do you want to do? All right. What I'm interested in are, first of all, the pie graphs, right? Most of my students that day were having a good day. Again, this is like a mock chart. So I normally have way more than 3 students. But 2 said they were doing really good. 1 needs some help. Then if I go down to what do you need to be successful in class right now, you'll see there's a couple of different things going on here, which we'll go into. What are some things that you would like to do in class? You'll see that they like it when they review together. They like it when we go into breakout rooms. They like when they have more help. There are 2 people that would like to meet with me to discuss more. And then for anything else, they want to meet to talk about the upcoming test. Now, if I go ahead and if I want to open in Excel, gonna go ahead and open. All right. Taking just a second. Because sometimes when I do this, it opens up in the big Excel. Which is what happened. So give me 1 second because I'm gonna change my screen. All right, gonna stop sharing this. Then we are going to go over here. All right. So anything that you want to do, really, you can export into a spreadsheet. You could do this the same with Google Sheets if you or you are so inclined. I do this with Google Sheets as well. Microsoft is just my preferred because that's what I always grew up with when I was a student. But you can take a look here and you can sort. So I think that's the best thing, right? So these are things that are automatically generated. I did not have to create this Excel by myself. I did not have to do anything myself. It was just a button that I clicked on the form. I cannot reiterate enough, right? Like if I were to collect this by paper, what would happen is that I have to sort through the paper, then I'd have to make my own Excel, then I'd have to write in all the names manually. I'd have to do all of that stuff. With this, all you have to do is just the click of a button. And then what you do though is that you select the things that you would want to have. Gonna go ahead and stop sharing this because even though this is cool, I also want to showcase to y'all the other cool thing you can do with quizzes. If you've been here for a little bit, I've showed this once before, but I wanted to give shout out to quizzes because this is really, 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 really neat. I'm gonna go ahead and make my own quiz. Let's title this science vocabulary. I can go ahead and I can add a new question. So let's say, what is the definition of a mountain? All right. And down here, I can say a mountain is created by plate tectonics and is a large structure with a pointed or rounded top. I can also say that a mountain is a flat piece of land. Obviously, that's not the right answer, so I can go ahead and I can select this one. I can add the amount of points, and this might be something that I consider doing for my warm-up. If I were to go ahead and do multiple choice text, what I wanted to showcase was the math feature. So let's see, a mountain has a width of 15 feet and a height of 100 feet. What is the total area? Total, let's say mountain has a width, actually, let's say as a height of 100 feet on all four sides. Let's make it like a perimeter question. What is the perimeter of the mountain? Alrighty. Now, I have math turned on. This equation would be 4 times 100. Gonna go ahead and press OK, and you'll see that I've got 4 different options here. So you'll notice this is not like the world's best question, but you can see that whenever I have a math equation, I can actually add things in and I can move them around a little bit because I personally am not the biggest fan of having the right answer being the first one. So 400 is the right answer. There we go. I can say this is 1 point. I can add another question, and you'll notice too that I've got some other recommended questions that are here. So if I were to go ahead once again and push this out, my students would be able to answer based off of what I have. So from the classroom perspective, that is really helpful to move things forward with artificial intelligence. Let's talk a little bit about what it looks like from the faculty and staff perspective. So I just stopped sharing that piece. Now we're going to talk about outcomes from the faculty and staff perspective. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm signing into my buddy Mentimeter. Mentimeter is one of my favorite tools. This operates on a freemium model. So you know, if you've been here for a while, I have a saying, if it ain't free, it ain't me. I love utilizing free tools whenever I can and getting the usage out of the free tools. So what we're going to do right now is just play around with the free version of Mentimeter, and I'm sharing this right now. And here we go. So here's something that I actually did with faculty and staff not too long ago. We were having a very deep conversation about what it actually meant for our students to be future ready. So I was working with the school district and we were talking about what future ready actually meant. We had about 50-ish teachers in the room. So some teachers did submit some duplicates, but the question I had was just fairly simple. When you hear the words future ready, what words pop into your mind? Now, this is a word cloud. So the more that people type things in, the bigger that the word actually gets. So you'll notice that my words were technology, prepared, communication, observations, literacy, and creative. Everything else is kind of scattered off to the side. It doesn't mean that it's not valid, but it does mean that it's kind of scattered off to the side. Now, you might be wondering, how did you do this? Once again, this is not me. Like all I did was make the question. Artificial intelligence did the heavy lifting for me. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to new slide, and you'll notice that within Mentimeter, we've got all of these really neat options. We have multiple choice, word cloud, open-ended, scales, ranking, Q&A. We can add a lot of different things. Again, right now I am on the free version. So anything with that star next to it, that green and black star, you do have to pay for it. Right now, what I'm just focused on is my free stuff, and that is going to be my word cloud for right now. So if I were to make a question, again, this is all within word cloud. My question might be, as we head into the new year, what is one thing? I'm frozen just a little bit, so give me a second. There we go. What is one thing that you would like to do to engage families? Because family communication can be kind of hard. I don't think I have to tell anybody that in the room. Even at the collegiate level, I have some students that have difficulty showing up, difficulty turning things in. I can't really contact their parents, of course, because I'm at the collegiate level. But what I can do, though, is just talk to them. And when I was in K-12, it's the same thing, right? What can we do to just engage invited stakeholders? That way they can have the big picture top level. So if I were to actually do this, you'll notice that up at the top, there is a user code. That user code is 5137788. But basically, if I want to go ahead and press present, it shares the code right out, and then people can go ahead and communicate. That way we have a beautiful word cloud that looks like this. So again, this might not be like super duper actionable data, but this is a nice low stakes way to engage with faculty, staff, and even students, right? Even throwing something up there, right? Like if we say water cycle, what does that mean to you? And the word cloud can be really neat for that. As I mentioned with Mentimeter, there are some other really neat things that you can do in there as well that really run the gamut. But I will go ahead and make this just a little bit bigger. And here's one that I did in July, where we talked about active storytelling and what we wanted that to look like as a faculty and staff. So we first started by just talking. What did your science, math, and tech classrooms look like when you were growing up? You'll notice that we don't have a lot of great inspiring responses. Typing competitions, Oregon Trail. I love Oregon Trail, but you notice how it says deaths by dysentery, just textbooks, chair section and lab table section, lots of lectures, few labs. Then we go a little bit deeper and we think about one thing really that we can implement from that. And this is like an ongoing Mentimeter that I have with my colleagues. So that's why it says waiting on responses. But you can see that from where we started, we didn't have that great of an idea of how we thought that STEM can really be conducted. But now we're getting better ideas and we're learning from each other and we're leading from each other. And that's how we can get all of this done. So, two really neat tools that you can utilize for data collection in order to move things forward. Now let's talk a little bit about that college and career aspect. So give me just another moment and I will go ahead and bring up my buddy, ChatGPT. Now, I know that ChatGPT and OpenAI can get a bit of a rough reputation sometimes. What I encourage y'all to do is, one, play around with it a little bit. Two, figure out how you want it to be utilized. Here's the reason why. If we take a look at the different things that I've utilized right here. So, here is a question that I gave ChatGPT that is completely unrelated to STEM. So I said, plan a Disney trip for 2 adults who are staying at Walt Disney World for 3 days. If you can't tell by my background, I live and breathe theme parks. So I was like, this is something that can be simple for me to collect data on and see if it's accurate or not. So you'll notice how it actually gives a pretty decent outline here, right? In the morning, arrive early to take advantage of shorter lines, head straight to popular attractions like Mine Train, Space Mountain, and Splash Mountain. Be Our Guest restaurant. I don't know if they have breakfast anymore. They might just have lunch. Cinderella's Roll Table is pretty all right, right? And then day 2 is Epcot. Excuse me, we have Test Track and Soarin'. Breakfast at Garden Grill, my fave. Sunshine Seasons, right? World Showcase, enjoy lunch. I'm not a fan of Beer Garden, but I do love Chefs de France, Frozen Ever After, Grand Fiesta Tour, all that fun stuff. Then Hollywood Studios. I mean, just a lot of really, really, really neat stuff that can be going on here. Look at the way that this did this in like 3 seconds. And you didn't see me type it out, but it was not long at all. When I think moving things forward with data and college and career, what I think of is, okay, how can we do this to help students get ready for that kind of stuff? So let's say, again, this is a combination of everything we've talked about. I'm doing the check-ins, and my students express that they want more information on networking and soft skills. I am looking at my word clouds and my responses, and the students are saying the same thing. How can we actively create something where our students can be engaged with it? So here's where I personally like to start. And I'm going to start new. Again, this is in ChatGPT. And what I'm going to do right now is say, write or create 5 interview questions for a student in high school who is looking to get a career in aviation. Again, I'm just spitballing here. Going to press enter. Here we go. There we go. So about 30 seconds. This is how we can expedite processes for students when they're thinking big and long term about their college, career, and whatever readiness. So you'll notice that my prompt, it was pretty specific. Create 5 interview questions for a student in high school who is looking to get a career in aviation. You'll notice that the questions are bolded, right? What sparked your interest in pursuing a career in aviation? How have you actively pursued this? Can you discuss any challenges? What steps have you taken? If I were to be working with a high school student, because again, I work with newly graduated high school students, they come up with some good questions, but the background is what's the most important. So notice how, for example, it says things like, this question assesses the student's awareness of industry trends and their commitment to ongoing learning. It also explores their perspective on addressing environmental concerns, a growing focus in the aviation sector. So it gives that background knowledge. And again, that can be really, really helpful. I can say the same thing for something else. What are 3 questions that a high school student should ask when they are interested in pursuing college? A little slower with typing today, y'all. Sorry about that. But if I were to take a look, here we go. What are the 3 key admission requirements for the college and specific program or major? What types of financial aid and scholarships are available? Can you describe the support services and blah, 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 blah. So the course that I teach at the collegiate level, this is all about foundations of student success. So things like financial aid and scholarships, support, what can we do to succeed? What does it look like to goal set? What does it look like to be organized? So when we think about what it looks like from the top down level, this is fantastic. And again, we can receive this from information that our students are giving us from other artificial intelligence areas. So looking top down, this is how we can get some real clear information and then help students rock it out. Now, if I were a student or if I were an educator and I'm like, okay, what do I need to do to utilize these services? My best advice, honestly, you just need to play around with it. You just need to play around with it and figure out what you need to do to move things from point A to point B with wherever you are. Because if I'm brand new with all of this stuff, I might not even know where to begin. However, just like how we talked about in that graph, we want to be at that plateau of that proficiency or that plateau of productivity where we're always working and we're always moving forward. So I'll give you one more example before we go ahead and we turn it over to questions. And for data, we're going to go ahead and turn it over to that future preparation. So 1 second. All right, hold on 1 second. Let me go ahead and bring this up in another browser. All right. Had to do a little reset, but that's totally cool. I wanted to showcase this into just not only the session that we have right now, I wanted to drop it into the chat box as well. This is from my friend, Rochelle Dene Poth, and really wanted to just, one, shout her out because she does amazing work with artificial intelligence, but two, showcase that she created an article that has 7 artificial intelligence tools that just help teachers and school leaders work more efficiently. She dives deep into why educators need to understand artificial intelligence tools. And she showcases exactly what we talked about earlier, where sometimes tech can have a little bit of hesitancy, especially when it comes to AI. We're at this kind of wild west field right now where we're not exactly sure what's going on, but we're all here for the ride and we're doing the best we can with the resources that we have. But the highlight is that it is important to take time to not only talk about this in our schools and our classrooms, but also learn about it as leaders. So she specifically highlighted 7 education tools that have worked for her, and also have worked for other educators as well. Not going to go into all of them here, but notice how OpenAI is highlighted. So they just actually released a teaching with artificial intelligence guide. I'm not sure if y'all have seen it, but I will go ahead and also drop this into the chat box as well. OpenAI created an entire guide just for teachers using ChatGPT in their classroom. This also extends up to school leadership and administrators. But it's really an explanation of how ChatGPT works, its limitations, different types of biases and AI. It's really, really neat, and I advise that y'all check it out. We've also got some favorites like Slides Go and quizzes. I mean, the possibilities are endless. But at the end of the day, I wanted to showcase and shout out this resource because, again, if this is all about using data to drive things forward, we have to start with what are we using? Right? I showed you Forms, I showed you Mentimeter, I showed you ChatGPT, but these are just 3 really cool tools that you can use, and there's a ton more. So I just implore you to search, I implore you to play around, and I implore you to have some fun because you really never know what you're going to find. So I'm going to stop sharing this, and what I'm going to do is go back to my slide deck. Once again, it's being a little slow. Like I mentioned, it is raining outside in my house. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and share this. All right, and make it nice and big. But I did want to go ahead and, again, before I turn it over to questions or anything that people might have, just say thank you, for being here. Thank you for your participation. Thank you for your interest in artificial intelligence. If you'd like to reach out, here is my contact information. I think I'm frozen, so I'm gonna stop my video and then bring it back up. But I am here at victoriarosethompson@gmail.com. I am also on Twitter at Victoria the Tech, and that's where you can find me. And then you can also find me on LinkedIn as well at linkedin.com/Victoria Rose Thompson.